All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Hallie. I'm a member of the Quad Education team, and I have two of our fantastic consultants here with us today who are going to walk us through how to determine whether a school is a good college. I know this is a question that we get a ton on our end. Students wonder if the schools they're going to apply to are good schools, and they want to make sure they're applying to the best schools or schools that are as good as possible. And unfortunately, that question is a little bit more complex than yes or no. So we'll dive more into that. For those of you that don't know, Quad Education is an admissions consulting company, and we work with students and families through the entire college admissions process from just starting to choose your extracurriculars and classes in early high school, all the way through taking the SATs, ACTs, deciding which schools to apply to, filling out your applications, writing your personal statements, everything through you deciding which school you're going to attend. So with that, let's run through the agenda for today, and then I'll have our consultants introduce themselves. So they'll introduce themselves. We'll talk about what makes a school good. We'll talk about how to determine if a college is right for you. We'll discuss some strategies for developing a college list based on whether or not schools are good or a good fit for you. And then we'll open things up for a Q&A. So if you have questions during this, pop those in the Q&A chat box, and we'll get to those at the end. We are also recording this webinar, and we'll send it to you in the coming days via email, so you can refer back to it as well. So we have Nick and Ariana here today. Dr. Nick, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So greetings from Houston, Texas. My name is Dr. Nick Accrocco. I've been with Quad for about 3 years now, but I've also been doing college admissions for the better part of 20. So went to Vanderbilt, was a tour guide, then went on to get my master's degree there, then went on to work at admissions within Vanderbilt. So undergraduate admissions office, making admissions decisions, traveling a territory. After that, I went on to work at the University of Pennsylvania within the Ivy League. And then, as we say in the industry, I went to the other side of the desk. So in other words, I went to the high school side. So I worked in a couple of different high school communities, was director of college counseling at 2 of them. So between that and my consulting and admissions experience, I've gone through this process many, many, many ways. What I can tell you is, in my years of doing this, I have every family who I've ever worked with comes in, and whether we're on a phone call, they'll say, we want to go to a good school. I've never had a family say they want to go to a bad school. So everyone seems to have the same objective. So all that to say, though, what I've always said is there's lots of great places that you can be happy at. That's the good news. The bad news is you got to go find out what those are. So here's the thing. A school that might be good for your friend may not be good for you. You got to make sure it's the right fit. You hear college counselors always talking about, is it a good fit? So for some of those students, there might be a large state institution or a small liberal arts college or a mid-sized research university. What we're going to explore during this presentation is all the things to consider as you're building your college list and ultimately making your enrollment decision.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dr. Nick. And Ariana, can you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariana Lee, and I'm an admissions counselor here at Quad Education. And I graduated from Dartmouth College with a bachelor's in neuroscience. And I also was a part of the orientation team, as well as undergraduate admissions, through helping students with application questions, as well as helping to do admissions interviews, as well as helping to read admissions as well in the applications. And then I also helped with QuestBridge. That's how I was able to go to Dartmouth as well, through a wonderful scholarship program called QuestBridge. And I've helped many students after being accepted with QuestBridge application. So going through the process as well, I agree. What does make a good school? To each their own. Everyone has a subjective opinion of what would be great for them. And that's the perfect thing that we're going to dive into, is how to figure out and how to assess what is good for you and what do you prioritize. And it's not going to be the same as your friends. And that's a good thing. It's introspective and it's personal for you. And we love going through the college list process and figuring out what is the perfect fit for you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here as well. I know we're going to learn a lot from both of you. So we'll dive right in and talk about what makes a school good. Dr. Nick, you want to lead us off here?
Yeah, so one thing I think that actually fuels the college search in many families a little bit more than perhaps it should is it prestigious? Is it ranked high? Oftentimes, this is U.S. News and World Report, but Forbes has their own methodology as well. These can be helpful guides, but the fact is, remember, at the end of the day, this is actually used to sell magazines. So it can give you an idea as to what these places are, but I promise you, a school ranked number 10 versus number 17 is not that dramatically different. And also, those rankings change every single year because it sells magazines. So it still gives you an idea as to kind of what to look for, but don't go by that alone. You want to look to see if it's a good fit. You can get a great education anywhere. And it's not necessarily based on what the magazine, had said, or again, it's going to change from here to there. But all that to say, it is something that I think parents are often very concerned about. But what you want to do is make sure you're finding a place where you say, okay, this is the type of school I'm looking for, and here are the schools that kind of meet that criteria, as opposed to it's ranked high. I've certainly worked with clients where that seems to be what's fueling everything. When I say, is this all about that? And they say, no, it's not. But I say, it's one factor, but there's many factors. But also look at how they come up with their methodology. So what sort of things do they value? And if you actually look at it, I think a lot of times people just see, well, this university is ranked, what have you, but what are they really looking at? Why is criteria different at different places? So all to say, it's a great thing to keep in mind, but it's not the only thing you should be looking at. And again, it's going to change every year. You can get a great education anywhere. So just keep that in mind. And we're going to talk to you about how to find a good fit for you.
Great. Ariane, do you have anything else to add to this?
I would say everyone values something differently. I've had a student say a great school would be a school miles away from my parents, so that might be something for you to consider. Or it could be a school, maybe you're pre-med and you're looking at, hey, does this school have all of the research opportunities that I'm interested in? Does this school offer dental programs that lead into dental or something very niche? Every school has something that makes them unique. Find out if that's going to be a connection to you.
Yeah, one thing, just to underscore, we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but research opportunities is a huge thing. And I'll tell you one thing that I think a lot of families may not realize. Liberal arts colleges, despite the name liberal, has nothing to do with politics. Despite the name arts, they have wonderful science offerings. So I'll sometimes hear, families say, well, he's interested in physics or she's interested in chemistry. When you go to a liberal arts college, they have few, if any, grad programs. So as an undergrad, you're not competing with the PhD student or the master's candidate. You are actually working with professors. So oftentimes students who go to these liberal arts colleges, they're coming out of undergrad with amazing research under their belt that they can then parlay into graduate school or an actual profession.
Yep. That's a great point. All right, student outcomes.
Yeah, so this is something that you'll see, it's kind of a weird standard, but the graduation rates are actually measured on how many graduate within 6 years. Most graduate within 4, but the way it's usually measured in higher ed data is 6 years. I don't know why either, but you're looking to see are students being successful. Now, sometimes it's a bad fit. Sometimes student gets sick. Sometimes a loved one gets sick. Something happens that they may not be able to necessarily complete it within 4 years. But that's definitely something to keep in mind of. And one thing I look at as a college counselor, so I've been on hundreds of college campuses across the United States, some international in the UK and Canada. Career placement is really important. The Career Center, what sort of services do they have? What sort of leads do they have? What sort of relationships might they have with employers? It can be a really prestigious, ultra selective, amazing place. But I really am interested in see what are you doing to prepare students for the next step. So much like we were talking about research opportunities, same thing with career placement. How's that Career Center working? How are they preparing students to get ready? Are they giving them summer internships that they can avail themselves of to see if they not only like that profession, but also to get their resume ready for when they are ready to apply for jobs?
I'm going to put you on the spot here, but is there anything that one or two things that people should look for when looking at the, career placement, the career offices at universities to know whether or not they are, excellent, or is it very dependent on the school?
No, great question. I mean, I would say at the very least, even if you don't visit, look at their website. You can feel free to email them questions. They're very happy to talk to you about like anything that you're curious about. If you have time during your tour, so after you do the information session led by an admissions officer just talking to you all about the university, after that you go on a tour. Usually it's about an hour and a half for the tour, but then grab lunch and then afterward stop by the Career Center. You know, you're gonna go buy the sweatshirt in the bookstore, of course, but go by the Career Center and just say, hey, you know, can I talk to somebody? Can I get some information? That can give you an idea as to kind of what programs that they offer. So I've seen some that have great job fairs. I've had some that have some, there was one, University of San Francisco did a really good job of this. They have a consortium with a couple of California schools, and they explicitly kept out certain schools that are very prestigious. I won't name them, but you can probably guess. But anyway, this consortium with other California universities that really work together to help their students get a leg up in those job searches.
All right, campus life and environment.
Awesome. So, like we were talking about before, looking at the geographical location, if you know, hey, I prefer colleges that are nearby home because for any number of reasons why you want to stay near home, or personal preferences for why you want to be in a particular area. Maybe it's near the CDC and you're interested in medicine, so you want to go near Atlanta, or whatever the case is. Look and see what schools might fit that location and preference. Again, there are amazing schools everywhere. So if you want to prioritize location and setting, I didn't personally. That's the reason I went to a school in the middle of nowhere, but that's just me. But to each their own. Look and see what aligns there. And it's really easy to filter out when you're doing your college search, what schools are particular places, what schools offer particular campus facilities. Maybe you're looking for schools that have an assistance for learning disabilities or anything. That is something you want to check and see, what does this campus offer? How are their facilities? Maybe talk to students that are on campus when you're doing your tours. Maybe check the website as well as YouTube pages. That's always a favorite, and see how is the school? How do you like it from that perspective? I know it can be difficult to narrow down schools that you have on your list, especially now if you're applying in this round. Do virtual tours. COVID was, allowed for a lot of virtual enhancements to be made. So do virtual tours and see, does this school fit what you are looking for idealistically? And then, of course, extracurricular activities. Look and see what clubs are being offered, but always remember, you can also start particular organizations or clubs at each university. If they don't have something that you're already doing in high school, you can continue it there as well. Sorry if I ramble, but you all get the gist.
Yeah, I would just add to that real quick. So location and setting. So some students really like to ski. And so I have students who are like, we're looking at places where I can get, to a mountain real quick. I have other students who want to do marine biology, probably need to be near water. So that just, comes to mind. I also think sometimes, with the distance, and parents are often very concerned about this. They'll think nothing about an 8-hour drive, but a 2-hour flight is unthinkable. And I get it. It's a control thing to a degree. I had a friend in undergrad, and she was from Phoenix, Arizona. And her mom said, you may go anywhere you like as long as there is a direct Southwest Airlines flight to that city. So that was their criteria. The other thing, too, is with the campus facilities, this is something that I've noticed, especially in visiting campuses, they're really upping their game with food and dorms and rec centers. There's one rec center in particular I'm thinking about that's really, really nice. I won't use names. We'll just call it University of Missouri. That has just really, really nice things out there. So they'll have yoga classes and a weight room and a pool and a lazy river and all the climbing walls, of course. With the extracurricular activities, a couple of things. There's lots of things out there. Of course, you can start them. You'll find that's very common at every university. But also, when you're writing the Why Us essay for these universities, write down what the names of these clubs are. So, for example, I had a student who was applying to Vassar in Hudson Valley, New York. And she said, I can't wait to join the student newspaper. I said, name the student newspaper. What's it called? The Vassar Times, the Vassar Gazette. So put that so the more proper nouns you can use, the better. But you'll see they have a little bit of something for everybody. Sports you may not have tried. There's cooking clubs, there's community service clubs, there's all sorts of stuff. But you'll see that every campus has a wide variety to offer.
Great. All right. So how do you determine if a college is right for you? So I just want to recap. We talked about some things to look at when looking at whether or not a school is good for you or maybe a good fit. But Dr. Nick, I know you have a little spiel you like to do when people ask if school is a good school. Mm-hmm. I know you gave it a little bit, but would love for you to just cover that one more time for us.
So you got to see, is it right for you? So I've had students sometimes they'll go visit a really selective place, in a place that, you've heard your whole life, everybody wants to go there. They're at a single digit admit rate and everybody wants to go and all stuff. And they'll come back from that visit and I'll say, so what'd you think? And they'll go, oh, it was cold and I'm from Florida and I just didn't like it. And this was weird and we got lost and the tour guide was strange and I don't know. And, all this stuff. So I'll say, so you're not applying? Well, of course I'm applying because it's blank. And again, that's going back to looking at the reputation, all that, aside from, will you be happy there? And I can tell you that I have been on, I visited 5 colleges myself when I applied. I applied to 8 schools in total. But having gone on hundreds of these college visits, I'll tell you, on one hand, they're not that different. That's kind of the good news. So you'll see that there's a lot of similarities with them. But there's also places that were not remotely on my radar in high school that I showed up and I'm like, I love this place. I totally would have applied here. I just didn't know anything about it. So that should give you solace to know that, is this right? There's a lot of places you can be happy at. The other thing I'll tell you, and this sounds a little mystical, but go with your gut. So if you feel like this feels good, this feels like home, this feels like a place I could be, comfortable. And again, there's multiple places. Sometimes students will say, I'm looking for the one. There's not a one, there's dozens, if not hundreds of places. But all that to say, go with your gut and think about, what are my goals in the next 4 years and perhaps after that? And how will this place meet those? And how will it satisfy my own personal desire to grow? And also, let's be real, have fun and enjoy where you are. Some people like to be in a really rural campus. Some people like to be in, downtown Manhattan. So it just kind of depends on what you're thinking.
And there's no master list somewhere where, people who are recruiting for jobs are like, this school's check mark, good school, this school's bad school. It really depends on, I think, like both Ariana and Dr. Nick said, it's what you make of it and how you go through, like how you use your time there. But I don't know if you two have any opinions about this, but from what I understand, like there's very few bad schools that exist. And if they do, they probably don't exist anymore. Or you would know about it.
Yeah, I would say we were talking a little bit about this earlier before the call, but I mean, honestly, I've never been to a campus where I go, oh, this place is terrible, they should shut their doors right now. Like, there have been places where I go, I would never go here, but this might be perfect for the student for whom I'm working with. So like that's fine. It's like, I've been on a couple, I went to a high school that was very small. I had 33 kids in my class. So when I go to like one of these like UCLA campuses and I see these throngs of people coming at me, like, that's a bit much for me, but that might be, your cup of tea. But all that to say, like, the only colleges I would avoid are anything that the government's done a good job of shutting a lot of these down, but some of the sketchier for-profit ones, University of Phoenix is kind of okay from all reports, but other places have been controversial and they've taken steps to, go after those. But all to say, if it's an accredited school, that's probably a good sign.
Ariana, anything else to add there before we dive into this next section?
No, I agree. There isn't necessarily a bad school, but there might not be a preferred school. So just as Dr. Nick said, it'll fit someone else. but everything else that you've lined up for your list and your list of preferences and your list of majors, it might not offer that. So therefore it's a bad school for you, or it's not the preferred school for you.
All right. So aligning with the college academically.
So one thing that we try to do is build what we call a balanced college list. And the first question I would just throw out there is, or the first answer I would give is that how many schools should you apply to? It depends. What I think as a college counselor is if you have options and you're happy, we're good. So some students can do that with 3 or 4 schools. Some students will do that with 10 or 12 schools. Every now and then I have a student that says, Dr. Nick, you don't understand, I have to have 40. No, you do not need 40. So I try to limit them at 15. I just think after that, the list just gets hard to, focus, and it's usually fueled by more selected places. But you want to have some reaches, some targets, and some likely safety foundations. So basically, probably won't get in, but have a shot. Might get in, might get waitlisted, and almost certainly going to get in. That's a balanced college list. You should love every school on that list, and you should be able to find at least a handful of places that you absolutely love and that you'd be happy to go to that will probably take you. So that's what we're trying to do. So when you're looking at this, you also have to think about what programs they have. So not everywhere is going to have necessarily what you want to study. So if you have something that's really unique, that may limit your list. Or if there's something that you're looking for, a program that might be a little bit more competitive at that institution. Sometimes I'll say to students, like, look, if you apply the institution, but not in that major, you might have a good shot getting it. If you apply within that major, your chances are going to go down. So that's one thing we work with every student to individualize. But again, you want to find that it not only matches, your interests and what you want to do, but also matches, your academic and your personal record and exactly what that kind of looks like. And that's what we do with Quad with every student.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to add too, and you already touched on it already, but if you're applying to those niche programs, then of course your list may expand, like BSMD programs or anything that is super, that is slightly more competitive. And some programs you might get accepted into the school, but not the program. Is that still a school that you want to go to? So you really want to understand if you are applying to a particular major, a particular program, what does it mean? Because some also, if you don't get into the major or if you don't get into that particular program, you don't get into the school. So just make sure you look into what the program specifications are.
That's a great point. All right, affordability. So I know that this comes with some caveats that Ariana and Dr. Nick will cover, but it also should be at least a little bit of a factor in your decision making. Ariana, you want to dive into this one?
Absolutely. So affordability, it may not be a factor for everyone, but for a lot, I'm sure it is. So when you're considering what school you're looking at, maybe taking consideration that net calculator, and maybe that's your best friend at that particular point. If the school is far away, can you afford a plane ticket back and forth from home? How easy is it for you to cover other expenses that maybe they're saying already we don't cover, or maybe it's a private institution? Or look into the factors as far as the financial aid, set up a financial aid call with the school, go over any questions or have a list of questions between you and your parents that are listed out that you can ask them. Again, I don't want to say let that be the end all be all and cross off a bunch of schools off your list, because scholarships do exist and there are different programs to make things work. But if, it's definitely a huge factor to consider for your list. Oh, and another thing too, becoming a UGA or there are other ways to make college work. So don't narrow your list purely based off of that. Go based off of what the schools fit for your major, for every other preference, and then look at your cost factor and see what can you do to make things work.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, don't look at the sticker price and go, eek, I could never afford that. a lot of places have very generous financial aid. And I'll tell you, like, I remember one time when I was an admissions officer, we were talking to the financial aid office, and we were just asking them questions like, to get, facts for when we went and traveled on the road and could answer students' questions. And I said to the financial aid director, I said, in my territory, I have so many parents that will just come up and say, well, we know we don't qualify for financial aid, and will just kind of write us off because it was a pretty expensive, total cost of attendance. And I said to him, I always want to say, how do you know? And then I said, so what do I say? And he goes, I say, how do you know? And so all that to say, I think sometimes parents will compare themselves to like a friend or a neighbor who they perceive to have a similar income level, but you don't exactly know what's in their books, so you're not exactly sure. So all that to say, like, until you ask, the answer is no. So even places that may have a really high sticker price, those places also tend to have really great financial aid. In addition to this, there's, what do we call portable scholarships? As the name implies, it doesn't matter where you go, you can use them anywhere. And so that's one thing that you can apply to. Even if you don't qualify for need-based financial aid, you could be getting those portable scholarships. And I've had some students really work that. And as a result, they make places much more affordable. So that's just one thing to keep in mind too.
Great. Definitely a lot to consider there.
Yep.
All right. So reaching your goals.
Yeah. So this is one thing, like I was touching on earlier, like one thing I'm always looking at as a college counselor is, again, what are you doing to prepare students for the next step? And I'll give you a great example. So I had a friend, and she was editor of our school newspaper, another school newspaper story, but she had an internship at CNN during the summer. And at the end of her internship, they actually picked up a copy of Vanderbilt student newspaper, and they showed it, because he used to always show like headlines from around the world, and they showed it and just gave her a little shout out, thank you, on the air to everybody. So that helped get her resume up and running for when she wanted to actually apply to journalist jobs afterward. So there's a lot of ways to get experience in college, and that doesn't necessarily even have to be at the college itself. It can be within the city. So we'll have students who will take advantage of different organizations, or like I have students who work in New York and they work at the United Nations, or they work at the mayor's office or what have you. So there's a lot of ways to get experience that once you graduate undergrad, you're going to have a lot of things under your belt, as opposed to just, I got the degree from the prestigious place. So it's basically what did you do with those 4 years undergrad? Doesn't mean you have to spend every waking hour doing everything, but this is certainly a time to not only get those experience, but also find out like what you like and what you don't like. So I've had students who have said, I want to be a doctor, it's my dream, that whole thing. And then they do an internship, they can't handle the blood. And so they do something else. That's okay. That's what internships are for.
Absolutely. And I know we had touched on this earlier as far as the what career resources a school may have. Internships, how does the school prepare and connect their undergraduate students to internships and different opportunities such as that, or research opportunities? What does that look like? Maybe those are questions that you also ask during the tour or during to admissions. That way you can help narrow your choices based off of how robust their programs are.
Great. Community. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but it's definitely an important part of finding a school that fits you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is going to be a highly individualized, basically what you're looking for. So some students really want a large environment. Some students will want a smaller environment. I've worked at high schools that, like, the biggest class I ever worked with was 140. And I'll definitely have students in my office saying like, oh, I don't want to go to a small school. I go, well, even the smallest colleges, with a few exceptions, are going to be larger than here. But again, some students love being in that, the 10,000 plus, like student body, and sometimes even more than that. But other times they want the smaller, environment. But also think about support services. So, if you need academic advising, there's nothing wrong with that. I've had it, everyone's had it, or even mental health services, nothing wrong with that either. So these are things that you should also just kind of keep in mind as you're looking for the next place. Will I be supported? Will I be comfortable? What sort of things, are available to me? Most places do a really, really good job of this. But again, if you have things that are specific to you, you want to make sure that that makes the most sense. The other thing about the culture, like some, not every school has the exact same vibe. I mean, some schools have, one sort of personality, others have a different one. You can certainly, it's not like a monolith. It's not like all students are that one way. But again, like if you're going to places that are, known to be quirky, like a Brown or a Wesleyan or U Chicago, it's gonna be quirky kids there, But if you're looking for like a large sports scene, so if you're going to like a Big Ten or an SEC school, you're gonna see more of that. Some students really like Greek life. Some students don't want to do anything with Greek life, and so that's another consideration of how big that's going to be part of the experience. So these are all things to consider. There's no wrong answer, but just know what your answer is and find places that meet that criteria.
Absolutely. And I would say community or the school's culture or how they nurture that is probably what I find students that I work with, that's probably the largest thing that they're concerned with. How are they going to be supported, especially they're away from home? How are they going to feel connected to one another and still feel that support? Even choosing Dartmouth, that was something that I looked into. What were some of the services that they had? Academic advising, just as Dr. Nick mentioned, mental health services. A lot of schools are now seeing the importance of mental health, and so they're implementing mindfulness events and things of that nature. So really, if possible, to tour the school or even just do virtual or whatever the case is, but getting a sense of that community and how you're going to really interact with the vibe, so to speak, I think that is crucial. It's definitely going to be one of those things where you're a year in and you might be feeling pressured with the amount of work. Are you going to be okay? Are you still going to be able to interact and connect with those around you and still feel supported? So I would say prioritize that if possible.
All right. So we're going to go over some strategies for developing a college list, and then we'll go into our Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to start popping those in the Q&A box in chat, and we'll answer as many of those as we can.
Yeah, so I think, as we've discussed, like think about what you might want to study. It's okay if you don't know, but just a general idea, like are you more of a STEM student? Are you more of a humanities student? What you want to do after college, your geographic preferences. We've talked a little bit about that in campus culture, but like what sort of school are you kind of looking for? And oftentimes I'll have students like tell me what that is, and I go, oh, that sounds like these places, and I give them some suggestions. So that's really helpful for us.
I will also add here, just from experience, don't discount something just because you think it's not what you want. I was determined to go to a massive school. I thought I wanted to go to a school with a huge campus and tens of thousands of students. Went to go visit a friend who went to a small liberal arts school, spent the night there, and found that I absolutely loved the community. I went to some classes, was able to talk to professors, and it was an environment I never anticipated myself enjoying, and it ended up being perfect for me. So consider your options and test it all out while you're making your wish list here as well.
Absolutely. And I would just say too, with your self-assessment list, I would just create it more like a brainstorm. What else? What are all the things that you love, that you're passionate about? What is it that you're looking for geographically? Is there anything culture-wise that you would love for your new campus to have? Write out like a wish list, so to speak, and then talk it over with your quad counselor or your and see if maybe they have any insight into schools that might be a fit from what you're describing. Just as Hallie said, I thought that I wanted a big a Big Ten school because I grew up right near University of Michigan, and that's all I saw was the maize, the maize and blue. And I got to, I got around that environment and I was claustrophobic and I didn't like that. So I realized a smaller school was more beneficial to me. So I would say go and try and do a tour of the school if possible, just so that you can really get a feel if your list is truly what you're desiring.
All right. Academic priorities.
Yeah, so one thing that I think when you're looking at the academic priorities, there are certainly universities that have a reputation for one thing, and that's kind of what they're known for. However, a lot of times these places offer great opportunities in other offerings that it may not be the one thing that they're known for. So, for example, Rice University and Johns Hopkins University, if you say that, most people think STEM, pre-med, right? But they also have great foreign policy programs. We have the Baker Institute right here at Rice University, right up the street from me here in Houston. And, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore also has great offerings in that arena. But they're often, I think sometimes like the pre-med and the STEM sort of eclipses the other programs. But all that to say, like, there are places that will have a really great program in whatever it is that you're looking for, but they don't have a monopoly on it. There's lots of places that have great programs. It's not like they're the only ones, but they also might specialize in one area of that discipline that you're particularly interested in. So maybe you're interested in business and they've got a really good marketing, faculty. So that could be something to consider. But that's just one thing to look at as well. Look at look at the academic websites on the university's pages, and look at the faculty bios, their research, what they're interested in. That's also good. Why us fodder? When I saw Professor so-and-so was studying this, that got me excited because of my interest. So this is another great way to work on that while you're doing your college search.
Ariana, anything else here? No, I absolutely agree. Looking at, I guess, depends on if you are looking to go into particular research or the different labs that are available, looking to see how accessible they are to undergraduate students. I agree with everything Dr. Nick said, though. Just prioritize, looking at what is a priority within your academic field, maybe ranking the different majors just in case you don't get into a particular major or you choose to apply under a different major. How easy is it to switch majors in undergraduate? How easy is it to access study abroad opportunities or various other academic opportunities for yourself?
Great. Financial considerations. I know we covered the majority of this, but we can gloss over it quickly here.
Yeah, so basically, and I'll put this in the chat. There's a website called fastweb.com. It's not the only one, but it's one I often send students to. This is where you can find a portable scholarship database. So this is one way to find scholarships. Regardless, you don't have to know where you've gotten in, where you're going to go, but you can start applying for these scholarships as early as sophomore year. And there's all sorts of weird scholarships out there. I had a set of triplets one time. There's scholarships for triplets. There's scholarships for short people. There's scholarships for tall people. There's scholarships for women who want to do this. Like I remember one time I was doing a database and I was starting from Z and working backwards, and my colleague was starting from A and working forward. So when I got to W, there were so many scholarships for women who wanted to do one thing or the other. So there's all sorts of stuff out there, but you can put in your demographic information and what you're interested in studying, and it'll give you a list of things you can apply for. Now, some of these are $500 here, $1,000 there, but again, if you work it, that can add up real quick. The other thing that may surprise all the students right now is pretty much regardless of where you go, and regardless of what you study, be prepared to spend somewhere between $500 to $2,000 on books every semester. It's insane. It's absolutely insane, but part of the college fun. Not the best part, but just part of the fun. So
that is absolutely a big piece of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like FastWeb. It's like you said, so many scholarships out there. And even when you are at school or even get your financial aid package and a chance to review it, just be mindful that some financial aid packages, they already factor in you working a job with work study, or particular things like that. Every little bit matters. So if you can apply to scholarships in advance, why not? Why turn down money that's available sitting on the table? And especially if it's not all need-based. So we had mentioned earlier about how do you work around that. There are many scholarships that are available that are not necessarily need-based scholarships.
If you are looking at those, the deadlines are not always the same as college application deadlines. Some are earlier in the year. So if you're applying for those, waiting until next May when you decide where you want to go, it might be too late. So keep an eye, start looking at those as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And there are recurring scholarships as well that you can apply to when you are also in undergraduate too, to supplement for any costs like the ever-growing price of books.
All right. Location and environment. We covered this a little bit too, but we'll touch on it again here.
Yeah, you just got to decide what you're looking for. I realized during my search, it was important. I was about half an hour from an airport. That's just how I roll. Other students really like to be out, in the wilderness, and that's great, and that's fine. Our students looking for a more suburban kind of area where they've got a little bit slower pace of life, but they can still get. I'm thinking about schools like Swarthmore and Haverford and Bryn Mawr, right outside Philadelphia. So you've got sort of a nice suburban, mainline type area, but then of course you can go down to Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if you don't like the cold, and without a doubt that you do not like the cold, perhaps not put, schools that are constantly with snow on your list.
Same with
you can always buy a coat. So that's always a possibility.
Is a great thing to factor in and very important. All right, Ariana, you want to take us through campus culture here?
Yes, absolutely. So again, figuring out if you all are seniors and applying to schools right now, you're working on that why this college essay, but you also want to say why this college for you. You're constantly comparing yourself, figuring out how do I fit for this college, but how does the college fit for you? So figuring out what works better, like we were talking about before. Do you like the smaller liberal arts college, or do you like that large public research university? Going to the campus, I would say, is probably a great way to figure out how you like the environment. But that's not always feasible for everyone. I did not attend, or I was not able to attend the school that I went to before going there. So you can always do things like talking to alumni or talking to current students, working with your counselor to possibly see if they have any insight, figuring out maybe the school has a particular diversity makeup that you prefer that they have, or whatever the case might be. Those might be particular things that you want your school to have. And there are great websites to look into, resources that will look more into that information, like political climate, diversity, social atmosphere. That way you can kind of get a better insight into the school and not necessarily visit the campus if it's not feasible for you to.
And Dr. Nick just put into the chat, talk to current students. Social media is amazing. Exactly. You have the ability to reach out to students and connect with them to see what they think and what their opinions are. Talk to your friends as well who are in college.
And the other thing too is a lot of times you can shadow a student, or if you know someone from your high school who's like they graduated last year or something, you can stay with them. That's like a test drive. Go to the dining hall, go to the basketball game, go to class, go to a lecture, play Frisbee on the lawn, whatever. And I go to the student eatery, try it out. It's like that. That's what it would be like.
All right, we have a couple more slides to get through here before we open things up for Q&A. So we're going to go through these fairly quickly. If you have any questions about them, pop them in the Q&A and we'll answer them. But a lot of it's what we've covered already.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about this already with the internship and career services. But remember, it's not about where you go. Like I always tell students, there's two names in your diploma. One is the name of your institution. The other is your own name. The second one has way more bearing on your future than the first one. If you took advantage of what was available at that university, if that was a good fit, you're going to be very successful. But, think about like right now, there is some student who graduated dead last in the class of Harvard in the class of 2023. That student's running around right now. So all that to say, like, it depends on what you did with it. They want to see that what sort of advantage you took of that education.
Absolutely. And not to sound harsh, but college is to build your career. And if you are not aligning yourself to the career that you are going to be going into, whether that's figuring out what that career is, you should constantly be propelling yourself forward. So whether it is a school that no one supposedly has heard of, or maybe not the most popular school, or the quote unquote best school, you can still be amazing and be a star at any school that you choose to, as long as you're putting in the effort and it aligns and the school aligns to what you are trying to do in the future. So really take that into consideration.
Absolutely. All right. Consult with advisors.
Yes. Seek guidance from your high school counselors, teachers, us, mentors, who can provide insights, recommendations based on what you provided. So as we talked about before, if there's particular things that you're looking for in a school, maybe you're not sure of what is out there for schools to begin with, you can always consult with an advisor to help you with that.
All right.
Yeah, here's the thing. There's a lot of great online tools. There's also some bad online tools. Again, I won't mention any names. We'll just call it College Confidential. There's a lot of great resources out there, but you got to be careful of rumor and hearsay. I've also been noticing that a lot of my clients right now are referencing TikTok videos. Not the most necessarily accurate of sources, but that's been coming. Like I saw on TikTok, like I'm getting a lot of that. We get questions every day that begin, I heard that, my friend said, my neighbor said, my older son who goes to USC said, I read online, like everyone is saying, like we get all this stuff. I know this hysteria has been going on even since when I applied. It's universal. It's probably been going on for 60 years, as a matter of fact. All to say, though, at Quad, we can certainly tell you what's accurate information and what's not. So.
All right. Application type. We'll talk quickly about application types, and then we'll open up the Q&A. So pop your questions in, and we'll get through as many as we can.
Absolutely. So really quickly, early decision, that means you decide on the school early. That is the school that if you're accepted into, that is the school that you are attending. However, there is some stipulations with early decision where you can still apply early action, depending on if it's a public university. There's also restrictive early action where, again, you have the stipulations of you can apply to this school, but not any other private institution, but you can apply to other public institutions. Early action, you can apply to multiple schools early. You are taking action early, and therefore you're not in a binding decision to go to that school if admitted. And then, of course, regular decision, those are typically January 1st, January 15th deadlines, and those are, you get admitted normally like everyone else. And then there is also rolling admissions, meaning that upon when you apply, they will review based on the timeline that they get it and give you the decision earlier than within that time frame that they receive it.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to this is that not every university or college has these plans. Some have one, some have both, some have none, some have lots of ones. So it depends. I had a really wonderful, very bright senior who I explained this all the time. No, you can't apply early that place because they don't offer it there. So again, the maddening answer to How do the colleges do blank? It depends. There's a couple of different models that we can help you with in terms of like what are some of the common plans that they might have, but it's not one size fits all. There's lots of different variety out there. So yeah.
Great. And then I will add, this isn't on the slide, but not every school uses the common application. The UC schools have their own application. Some schools will have their own application. Make sure you're paying attention to that when you're reviewing the website.
Yep.
Oh, and also any North Carolina schools, October 15th.
Yes. Know your dates.
Know your dates.
All right. So let's go into a couple of these Q&A questions. So can you talk about the main difference between liberal arts schools or, for example, larger universities?
Yeah, so liberal arts colleges are typically going to be smaller. And again, if they have any graduate programs, and they very rarely do, they might have a token one. But for the most part, it's a purely undergraduate experience. You get all the research opportunities that in other words, you're not competing with PhD candidates for. So that's basically the main gist.
How do you know if a major is good at a specific school?
So with this, I would say check the websites, look at the strengths of what they have. And again, remember, careful about how we use the word good, because who says it's good, how it's ranked, how it's evaluated. You want to see if it's a good fit for you. And that may sound a little corny, but that's really kind of what we're going for. You're looking to see if everyone in the history department is focusing on one particular period or geographic area, that might be their strength, but there might be a place where it might be a little bit different. So.
Absolutely.
All right.
And there's another question here in the chat about non-traditional students. So basically students who are, typically older than the 18 to 19-year-old who enters undergrad. I've certainly worked with them before, whether they've gone to community college for 2 years or they're just starting out on the front end. Usually that's a conversation about, usually they have a family or work situation that we also have to work with, but that's something where we just work with the student and say, okay, what are you looking for? And let's find a way to get you there.
Absolutely. Everyone has their own individual reasons and stories, and that's the main thing. What was your why? What is the reasoning behind it?
All right. And then I really like this question. How do you get past all the marketing materials that colleges send you to find out what a school is really like?
So, as I recommended, shadow a student for a day. Talk to current students. Talk to students who, graduated from your high school and enrolled there then. That way, all the marketing is going to look basically the same. Happy students in classes, raising questions, or they're on the lawn, they're laughing, someone's playing a guitar. It's kind of the same stuff. I get it, but all that to say, test drive it. You can look at pictures of a car, look at brochures of a car, but test drive it.
Ariana, anything else to add there?
Absolutely. Talking to alumni, talking to current students, if you can visit there, if you can do, depending on what year you're in, if you can do a summer, summer program, particularly at the school that you're really interested in, and see how that is. It's kind of hard to see past the brochure sometimes, I understand. But really look and see, what are they offering? Do your research and see what major, see what fits for you. Every school's brochure is going to look pretty similar. They look great, though.
So 2 quick questions in the chat. Do colleges only look at high school grades? Correct. Some students might do a dual enrollment or take community college or an online course, but they're not looking at middle school grades or elementary, or you were the third tree in the 4th grade play. They're not looking at that. Is there any risk to taking a gap year? There is not. And I think gap years get talked about a lot more than they actually happen, because I get lots of questions, but I can think of a handful of students who've done it. Students might do a year of research. They might, if they're an athlete, they might be, training to get, more competitive, for athletic recruitment. But usually students are doing something meaningful, and colleges are very accustomed to looking at what they want to do and just seeing if that makes sense.
I think taking gap year too, I know I have had multiple friends who've done college applications at the normal pace, applied during senior year, chose where they wanted to go, and then deferred their application for a year and were able to take a gap year with a program that they wanted to do or something, and then still have a spot waiting for them when they were done with that year. So you have a lot of options there.
I had a student one time, he took a gap year because he and his buddies had a food truck and it was really popular and they just wanted to do the food truck for a year.
That's
Cool.
So,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
All right. And I know we have a couple of questions in here about specific circumstances unique to the student asking them. And I would refer you all to our website, fill out a contact us form, schedule a consultation with our team, and they'll be able to better walk you through what some great options for you might be specific to your circumstance, better than we can here, not having all of the information. But I think that brings us to the end of our webinar today. I want to thank you all for joining us. Dr. Nick, Ariana, it was great to have you both. Appreciate all the information and you all being here. And for everyone that joined us, thank you for spending the past hour with us. You will be getting an email in the coming days with a link to this webinar. And we also have upcoming webinars up on our website. We have our past webinars up there too as well if you want to go back and check out some of our other topics. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.